All right. Hello, everyone in the YouTube sphere. Um, Welcome back to another episode of Game of Thrones discussion and review. Um, uh, I'm Andrew, and we have Justin and Brandon and a special guest today who I'm hoping can join us moving forward. This is Greg, and it's a special episode for a couple reasons. I thought the episode was really interesting and fun, and I feel like they took it up a notch. But it's a special get together for us because it's Brandon's birthday today.
Happy
So,
birthday, Brandon.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Brandon. So without any further ado, what do you guys think of the episode? Just in general, just a quick overview of the whole episode.
I certainly enjoyed this one more than the last two. Thought we covered a lot more ground. I was happy to see, particularly Arya Stark, learning a little bit more in Bravos. I was hoping to get that in the first episode of this season, so happy we got to see that. I wanted to see Daenerys a little bit more this episode, which we didn't get to see, but she was referenced a lot. So we're starting to see, I think, the perspective on her from others in the area. She's becoming a growing threat to some of those people. I thought it seemed like a bit of a jump to me that suddenly in this episode, King Tomlin is marrying Marjorie. That was totally unexpected to me. I expected there to be
Kind of early.
Yeah. I expected there to be a little bit, maybe more courting between them, or I don't know, just more discussion.
And even with the reveal, it's not the ceremony where we see them cross the threshold.
Oh, no.
It's already happened.
Yeah.
So they didn't have even a build up in terms of how the ceremony works. So yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I see that. For me, certainly I found this episode to be very satisfying and very interesting. The previous episodes I thought were a bit deliberate in pacing. Certainly not as interesting as previous seasons. But, you never know what's going to happen, so that expectation that's going to happen still kept me going with the previous episodes of this season. But this particular episode, I think, is extremely important because it's an absolute reversal throwback to the very first episode of the season, or of the series.
Yes.
And it's also a revival of one of the most beloved characters of the series, Ned Stark. Because when Jon Snow successfully performs the decapitation, which some people may say, well, they didn't know how that was going to go, and we were talking about it before it happened, like, is he going to do it, is he not? But if he doesn't do it, then he would totally be betraying the essence of what he learned from Ned Stark at the very beginning, which is basically when you're a king, you make a decision, and you need to be the one to execute the decision. Don't have an underling do it.
And he would have his whole position as Master Commander be threatened. Lord Commander be threatened by anyone that stood up to him.
And so really it's a resurrection of Ned Stark, because when you see, because the other thing you got to keep in mind, when you're in a king court situation and you see the king disrespected, most kings unfortunately try to politic their way into carrying out the discipline. And when you see that, you kind of lose respect for the king too. But the fact that Jon Snow immediately carries it out and then does it himself, you know that he's got some real chutzpah about him. He's willing to execute an order, or he's willing to give an order, and he's willing to execute the order himself. That's a man that's willing to stand alone.
Which I don't see a lot, and I love what you said about that, him getting that and kind of the resurrection of Ned Stark and him learning that in the first episode, because you don't see that in a lot of different situations. The king kind of sits back, makes the command, and you said something very interesting, the political way of maneuvering and kind of working around getting it done in that moment. But, you know, speak a little bit more about what you meant by that.
Well, anybody can politic their way into discipline, because ultimately you can blame the system. So if it doesn't go right, then it's a critique on the system, not you.
Not you.
But when you give an order and then you carry it out yourself, you're basically taking responsibility, because a king really at the end of the day is alone. A person who thinks that they can hide behind their subjects doesn't really understand leadership. You know, at the end of the day, when you're a father and you're relating to your son, if at the end of the day you don't realize that how you treat your son is how you are ultimately going to be treated by the higher authorities that you're accountable to. Now, some people watching may say, well, how do we know there's a higher authority? Well, independent of the metaphysics of it all, realizing that you are not the ultimate authority in your son's life is the best way to be the best father. When you have a recognition that there's a being greater than you that will hold you accountable for how you treat your son, then you think a little bit differently about how you interact with your son.
Yeah, and also the fact that he's going to treat others possibly in that same manner, which we see full circle today with how Jon treated. I mean, Jon saw that. Bran was the one in that scene who kind of got initiated by that, by Ned carrying out that, and Jon's kind of protecting Bran.
Well, no, Jon
Oh
tells
no, he
Bran,
said, look at it.
Father will know if
Yes,
you look away,
yes.
you know.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. So that
So-
was the.
So that whole moment that we see set up at the beginning, which if you're not really focusing on it can seem somewhat insignificant, it now comes into play
Full circle.
because Jon Snow is carrying with him the spirit of Ned Stark. This episode is the confirmation.
Love it.
So even though Ned Stark is beheaded, he's not dead.
He's not dead.
Because he has honor.
Oh
You know.
goodness! All right, B, what'd you think?
I liked it. I felt like and this is sort of what I would wrote down, I felt like this episode had a clear theme, and that theme was vengeance. Several times throughout the episode, you hear talk of vengeance. Like at the opening, you know, it's Sansa Stark being wed to, or being betrothed to Ramsay Bolton, right?
Yeah.
And so Littlefinger is advising her, you know, don't be on the sidelines anymore.
Don't run.
Be the instrument of the justice
Right.
and avenge
Yep.
your family. So then it flips to, okay, what's the tall girl? Brienne of Tarth. You know, she's talking about how Renly treated her and showed her kindness, and how she wants to avenge his death because that shadow monster that killed him had the face of Stannis on it.
Right.
So she wants to revenge him. Stannis offers Jon Snow the opportunity to become Jon Stark, and he says, don't you want to take this opportunity to avenge your family? Then you get this one point in there where this woman sees Sansa Stark and she says, the North remembers. I think that's going to be key, because these Boltons are amongst these Northerners who are super, as we learn, super stubborn and super set in their ways and super loyal and super honorable, because they're dealing with that image and spirit of the Stark line as well. So, and then you have Arya, who her whole arc is to be an instrument of vengeance. That's her whole desire to become a faceless man. So this whole episode is centered around this idea of vengeance. And what is vengeance? Having, you know, what is the proper way to go about vengeance? Is vengeance even a worthwhile thing to invest your time and energy into? You
In
know
that
what I mean?
world.
And what does it cost someone?
Right.
Because I mean, it seems interesting because if Jon Snow gets caught up in vengeance, we don't have that beautiful moment where he cuts off, Janos Slynt's head, and you get to see that resurrection that Greg talked about so beautifully of Ned Stark, the spirit of Ned Stark sort of resting on Jon Snow. So what was going to be done as a formality by Stannis, I'm going to give you the name Stark,
He took it anyway.
actually happens.
He took it anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
Through the process of him rejecting the offer.
Right.
And then it turns around where Stannis is there and being like,
And then he gives
so,
it a head nod.
so
Yeah.
it's like, you know, he's
Like he approved of it.
yeah,
or,
right.
Or, you
he
know.
approves of it. So
What's
And
the
notice
ki-
how he's like in the background. He's not even
Yeah, he came out when
the
it
main
happened.
participant.
Right.
Yeah, like he's
It's very interesting because it was like he wasn't John didn't owe him any approval, but it was a very but because of what who's the dude with half the hand, half the fingers, second to Stannis' second hand man, right hand man.
Yeah, it's his hand.
Yeah, so he comes in and he tells John.
The Knight of Onions, but I forget what his first name
Yeah,
is.
he comes in and he tells John, hey, he sees something special in you and all these different things, and then like, what, John like makes this great kingly move. Stannis approves of it. Like, I think Stannis is like, this dude is something
It's
else.
legit, yeah.
Yeah, he's something else. So it's very interesting.
Which is interesting. It you know, I mean, it makes me think of a conversation we had about Daniel,
okay.
and just this idea that, you know, kings know they're playing a game,
Right.
and they know they're running a system, and when they see someone who doesn't play the game,
Mm-hmm.
they can't do anything but respect it. They have to honor that being who is like outside of the politicking and the fray and all these different things.
Gladiator.
So yeah,
Gladiator, Russell Crowe, right.
so it's just interesting
Right,
to
right.
me.
I wonder though if so we didn't see the Red Woman at all in this. We were,
Yeah,
this
where
is
was
the
she
first
at?
time where we see
We
another
saw an
red
iteration of the
priest.
Red Woman.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And that's the first time I think we've ever seen a priestess.
Yeah.
Aside from the one we've been seeing so far, but I wonder if she said anything to Stannis about the role Jon Snow plays in her story, because we've seen in previous episodes her, you know, kind of eyeing Jon
She's
up.
definitely interested
like,
in
She
him
keep
as-
because that other episode she kept eyeing him up. So she definitely is captivated by Jon Snow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if there's something Stannis knows at this point, too. I thought the nod was really interesting because it's like he was just denied,
Mm-hmm.
but yet he still, like as you said, you know, he respects.
Well, because Stannis, for all his, you know, his failings, and you know, I don't think Stannis is that bad, but Stannis respects the fact that it was Ned Stark who sent out those ravens, essentially declaring, you know, Joffrey and his siblings to be, you know, bastards, right? And
Right.
that Stannis was the rightful heir. So I think there's some aspect of Stannis that respects and understands that, okay, Ned Stark was difficult, he was honorable, as this, but on some level I owe my claim to the throne to that honorable nature of Ned Stark.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was already. I mean, that's the thing about the Baratheon brothers. Like Robert and what was the youngest one? That Brienne
Renly.
Tarth was. Yeah, Renly. But all of them, like season 2 or 3, I'm not sure which one it was, but you know, once Robert died, Stannis and Renly were like both trying to. I think Stannis had to transform, and I think the Red Woman kind of helped him, oddly enough, with his confidence into you are the correct heir. You do have a claim to the throne. You need to go after it. You need to seek it, and don't have any doubt ringing around in your mind. I think like once the Iron Bank backed him, and he goes and he at the end of last season, and he kind of stops the wildlings from doing what they were. I mean, he got that confidence, and it'll be interesting because if he's going to march on Winterfell, which is what he said he was going to do, where does that leave Sansa? Where does that leave?
Well, I think things are going to ramp up very quickly here in keeping with the pace of this episode, and I think there's going to be a lot happening in Winterfell.
Yeah, because now that's a buzz.
So
place.
even before Stans can get there, I think there's going to be some stuff's going to go down.
Well,
I think.
The thing to keep in mind too, though, is from a writer's standpoint, if George R. Martin is saying that Jon Snow is, in essence, the conduit for Ned Stark, well, that changes everything because now a new king and a new throne just showed up that nobody even knows about.
Right.
You know, and that's probably how it's going to work. It's not going to be the most powerful. It's going to be now on some level we can root for Jon Snow the whole time, but I think there's something to be said for the fact that he is taking on his father's principles. So because now, as you're saying, in the game, the series now has to investigate how effective are those principles.
Mm-hmm.
We already know they got Ned Stark beheaded. So the logical question is that what's also going to happen to Jon Snow? Why or why not?
Right.
Because he's applying the same principles, so why wouldn't he have the same fate? Or what spin? Because when the guy's asking for mercy, on one hand, Jon Snow is hesitating,
Yes,
but he's not hesitating, I don't think, because he lacks conviction. That's something that's being done for the purposes of the audience.
Mhm.
Because the audience, that's done for the drama.
Right.
To extend
Right.
the moment of what's he going to do. And
Which-
then it's also gives an opportunity to show that guy's really a coward. So he gets humbled
Mm-hmm.
before he faces death. So that also shows you how powerful is the character, because you got to remember, Jon Snow sitting there, bring me my sword. That guy,
He's still
that guy's whimpering and whatever,
Yeah.
and then he still takes his head.
And plus,
Yeah.
it endears you more to Jon Snow because it's not like he's just like, all right, do. It's like.
But he could have, and I
Like-
still would have been, because that's what his dad did basically.
And
No,
that
his dad
still
didn't
would've
do that.
been-
His dad, no. If you watch that scene,
he's teaching his children,
I mean,
which is the same sort of.
his dad, he hears them, and it's like it's a silent prayer, and the fact that he hesitates to me is like, okay, this guy has mercy. He
Yeah.
wants to, but he understands.
But he really doesn't hesitate. At dramatic from
Right.
from a power standpoint, he's just being silent so we can hear what the other guy's saying. It's really not a hesitation because the other guy's saying
Oh, 'cause
something.
he was asking for mercy.
From a dramatic standpoint, that's just to give us an opportunity to see the vantage point of the other person.
Mhm.
Now he could have went like that, and he was, but it was the guy talking.
Right.
And he did
That,
tell the guy.
yeah, he said
"You
you
have
have
any
any last words.
I guess he did.
So,
yeah.
so you know, if he would have not given him last words, that would be evil.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
No just execution
So what-
is just, but
Yeah. So what do you think? You said something about his last words. The man's last words did what? It didn't give Jon Snow any pause, but because he was begging for mercy. And if Jon Snow would have given him that mercy, then he wouldn't have been able to carry out. So it was almost like, I'm going to allow you to have last words.
I mean,
Well, that was a mercy.
Jon
Like, let him
Snow,
have last
Jon,
words.
well, but that's standard when you execute somebody, unless you're like evil.
Right.
Like no just monarchy
Authority
doesn't
will
give
not
people
give you
not
last
last
words.
words,
Mhm.
and there's a reason for that, because it's the idea that you actually are killing a spirit. So if you don't allow the spirit to at least speak,
Right.
then you'll be haunted. You know.
And it was deep how much his character changed from I'm not doing to I'm doing.
Okay.
Audio good? Audio's on?
audio is on. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg. Mercy and
You can compare and contrast those two situations, Daenerys and Jon Snow, and their treatment of the
Various offenders.
the various offenders who were about to be executed. Should they have shown mercy? When I watched that, I wanted her to show mercy. I felt like that was the thing to do. At the very least, it's what the people wanted, and then the people lashed out, kind of like. You know, it might be kind of like in Inception when the projections get
Yeah,
get-
right.
they look at her.
She's like changing. You're changing too many things.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And that's in essence what happened. She had to get out of there. But that aside, that Christopher Nolan reference aside, the Jon Snow component is what I think is interesting because it just, to me, it's so satisfying to see that Ned Stark is still there, and it's the Game of Thrones. It's not the game of people.
Well, do you think that the author R.R. Martin, do you think that he meant for that moment to be that, or the writers at HBO? Because look, this is a
absolutely.
fantasy world. I mean, now I believe that's something I believe is real because I believe the spirit and the presence of one could come upon.
Well, it's not,
Jon Snow.
but you don't even have to acknowledge spirit because the word that writers use is character. The character of Jon Snow, I mean, the character of Ned Stark continues, but that's what a throne is. A king isn't real. The king has nothing to pass on to his successor if there isn't some greater character than the individual being.
Right.
And so what this is doing, it becomes a game where we get to see the essence of the thrones behind these people, because that's the deeper thing. Who are these forces? I mean, don't forget this is 7 kingdoms, 7 gods. There's all kinds of the faceless person. There's all kinds of factors that aren't even necessarily playing obviously here. But
And we still have the children in the woods who we don't really know anything about yet.
Yeah.
Bran ran into at the end of last season.
Yeah, the whole White Walkers. I mean, it's interesting. What did you guys think about?
Before we move on, can I just say also in regards to
This is still about John. Yeah, go ahead.
well, in regards to Jon Snow's kingdom, he also now potentially is leading an army of wildlings, right?
Yeah.
Well,
What's he
maybe,
gonna
maybe
do there?
not.
I
but
mean,
he has.
well,
to,
they have to they need to obey, right? Because their
they,
leader
they haven't.
And
They
I think
haven't
they were-
committed
Yeah.
to any. You know, that was the whole Mance Raider issue.
Stance, right.
Stance.
He wasn't going to kneel.
Bend the knee, right?
Yeah.
And Stannis what did Stannis suggest that you do with him? You just kill him, right?
Yeah.
Well, he said, if they're not going to follow me, I leave them in your hands.
And I suggest
And
that.
but I suggest that
Right.
you take them out, you burn them. What did you guys think about John's decision not to join Stannis, not to go fight with him? Because here he is on the wall, holding to his oath, you know, where at times he's had to bend that oath for whatever reason. But here,
You mean
now
not bowing down to him to get the?
Well,
the
not-
name?
Well, his
not
oath to
even-
to the Night's Watch.
Yeah,
No, I mean, you said about him not fighting with him.
not fighting, not going with Stannis and fighting with him.
Well, it definitely, you know, he's not willing to take the easy path, right? I mean, he's trying to go the untraveled road,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's a very Ned Stark type move, right? Because he wants to hold to his vows as a member of the Night's Watch, which even though he's already technically broken his vows through his relationship with Ygritte,
Mhm.
he's trying to acknowledge that and do right by that.
Especially as Master Commander.
And now as Lord Commander,
Lord
yeah,
Commander,
exactly.
yeah.
He wants to do that.
Mhm.
And I think you got to realize too, one of the things that the world of Game of Thrones wants to argue, at least at first, is guys like Ned Stark finished last. That's the way it seems.
Yeah.
But it may not play out that way. Now, the way that the Game of Thrones world works, though, that could actually be true because you can still root for a character, and then so we still don't know the ultimate destiny of Ned Stark's character. We don't know how influential it ultimately is, both in the world of the movie, the diegesis of the movie, but then also with the audience. But you know what? It's so profound because the author hasn't even completely written out the story. So that's not etched in stone.
And to your point of the, John making similar moves that Ned made, and seeing how that character is going to react and respond, it's a different, Westeros is different. Like it's, the Lannisters aren't in power as they once were. I think if Ned would have been...
You said the Lannisters are in power?
Are not
in power.
Okay. I mean, they are, but they've lost with Tywin, with Jaime now going to Dorne. Tyrion's out. It's just not as strong. And the Lannisters were really that force behind everything that happened with the Starks. And so, it's interesting. It's like Ned's getting a second chance in a different dimension to bring nobility back through Jon. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Jon has said, I've said it every time we've gotten together, like he's just the best of all. I think he's the best of all Seven Kingdoms. Like he's it'll be interesting to see, because I know at some points I felt that way about Daenerys. Like I was like, she's got the fire, she's got the dragon, she's got mercy when she needs it, but this last episode, the one before this last one, she didn't really show it. So
all right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because I used to think similar things about Tomlin, the current king. He's seems like a good guy. He wants to do what's right, but
He's
I think
a kid,
he's too young, and he's
he will be
he's
easily
persuadable and
manipulated.
manipulative. He's
right from the
manipulable.
gate, he is.
And we saw that in tonight's episode.
Yeah.
Marjorie has already begun to persuade him to understand his mother to be a manipulator. And then in the very next scene, you see him you see her doing almost exactly what Marjorie said she would do.
And it's a trip. She plays Anne Boleyn in The Tudors. So she plays the wife of Henry VIII.
Wow.
And she plays the exact same type of person in that. But I guess what and we kind of segue to it. Marjorie and Cersei, the chess game. What's going on there? That's a fairly because I'm just trying to think. Okay, this High Sparrow character and Cersei trying to deal with them and rooting out hypocrisy and stuff. I'm trying to think, is she going to try to turn that in some way?
I wouldn't doubt it. That is not like her to go into the swallows of,
she's not,
that's not her move.
She's not joining the Peace Corps or anything like that, or you know what I mean. She's
but
all.
It's chess moves. I mean, in chess, the queen pieces move throughout the board with reckless abandon, doing what they can, and I feel like Marjorie and Cersei, Cersei knows that prophecy, and if Marjorie is the one, I mean, last discussion we said. Or I think, Brandon, you said, well, maybe it's Daenerys.
No, somebody else said that.
Or somebody else did. Okay.
You said that, right? Didn't you say that?
Maybe it's Daenerys that is the younger, more beautiful queen that rules over Cersei. But she's like, hey, I have nothing to lose here. I do have something to lose. I don't want to lose my son, so I'll make every move I can to try to keep my hold on him. And the other queen, what's her name? Marjorie.
You sound like Will Smith right there.
Marjorie's gonna do the same thing. So these are chess moves, through and through.
All right, and okay, so then, Littlefinger giving up Sansa to be married.
He's going to be a major player.
What did that note say?
I want to know what the note said.
Littlefinger's going to be a major player. He may not get as far as he thinks he can get, but he's going to be a major factor.
So he has the Eerie.
He has the Eerie, right?
He's not married
He is
because
not
he killed his wife.
because he killed his wife.
Right. So sky's the limit. I mean, I agree. I agree. I mean, he's
He's already the driving factor
He
for
is.
all the action. I mean,
He is.
right?
But he's politicking. He's
He
he's
doesn't.
going through the politics.
But he knows that about himself. Like, he's not the one to cut the head off.
Well, he tried to do the honorable thing because he was originally in love with Catelyn Stark, right?
Right.
And he challenged, Bran, right? He challenged Ned Stark's brother or something like that,
Uh-huh.
and he
I don't
lost the fight.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, this was like when they were kids, and so because I guess she was betrothed to
To someone else.
someone else.
Okay. Littlefinger. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Well,
No, not just someone else. A Stark,
another Stark.
another
not Ned.
Stark, and then something happened to Ned Stark's brother, and then I guess kind of like with Marjorie.
Get passed down to the next.
Right,
to the
so-
next
No,
brother.
no. Maybe I just don't understand the hierarchy of, again, in the kingdoms here. But what gives Littlefinger the authority to give away Sansa in marriage?
Well, technically, he doesn't have that authority.
Yeah, she's a refugee.
Well, technically, he's now her uncle through marriage because he married her aunt, which is the only. But that's
right,
the
but
only
that helps him to earn her trust. What gives him the right to use her as a pawn in that way is the fact that she'd be dead.
If it wasn't.
Well, you gotta remember once Joffrey was killed like that, her life was in jeopardy.
Right.
And the people that plotted the death are trying to orchestrate. That's part of their plan.
They knew her
to-
life would be in jeopardy.
to get her out of there. So Joffrey's sitting there choking. Come with me, and then, so it's like it's a
Oh well, then thank you for saying that because the people who plotted the death, it seems like it was the grandmother, because she was aware of it.
Oh yeah,
and,
'cause she got out of Dodge.
and Peter Baelish,
it's all
Yeah.
and Peter Baelish, Littlefinger. So
I
this
think
could
Varys
be
had something to do with it too, but not just
This-
them maybe behind the scenes.
this could be a move to resituate the power structure away from the Lannisters completely, right?
Sure. So you got.
Because the moment Sansa becomes pregnant, her child will have Stark blood and it'll have Bolton blood, technically, and so he would be the Warden of the North. That child that they have would be the heir to that Stark,
Because it's a Stark.
to the head of
Right,
to
right.
the head of that household, and he'd be a Bolton,
Yeah.
but he would also be a Stark.
Yeah.
That's gonna be that would be a pretty challenging family because that guy is so ruthless, but then it's offset by Sansa, and that actually is probably likely what's gonna play out, and that's gonna be a very difficult throne to challenge because you're gonna be so conflicted
Right.
in terms of watching what's going on there. I mean, if she has a child with him. Now that child is going to be capable of crazy evil or good.
See, I don't see that happening. I don't see Sansa opening her legs for Ramsay Bolton. I just don't see that happening.
It's not going to be by choice.
Yeah.
No.
She's not going to get the same treatment that Tyrion
Look at
gave.
the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
He's not going to be by choice.
Once they're married,
He's gonna break her, totally change her personality, or she's gonna have to escape. Either way, she has to become a totally opposite type of a character.
But she's already on the road to becoming an opposite character. That's the whole point with her dyeing her hair and
No.
really taking.
But she can't do. But she's gonna have to be like away from all kingdoms. How's she gonna do that?
because the North remembers. So she already has
Who?
allies.
Who? She's got to get to them. She can't get to them without Littlefinger. She's not gonna just run off from him. She'd have to make a move. She'd have to basically
She's in
become
the
her
North,
sister.
so she has people who are already.
Yeah, but she can't be in the
Right.
North and not go with the plan, because the person supposed to marry's right there.
Yeah, I mean, she would have to create some sort of allies. I mean, she's
She
at her
can't
own
do
home.
it in the North because in the North is the very guy that we're talking about she needs to avoid. She can't avoid him and stay there.
But she has other people in the North who remember
But
her
it doesn't
name, her
matter
family name.
if she's not in the North.
She is in the North.
She can't. But what I'm saying is, we're trying to have it both ways. How can she avoid the guy that broke whatever his name is?
Well, Ramsey.
Ramsey. Yeah. She
Who-
can't
Theon,
avoid.
Theon.
She can't avoid Ramsey and stay in the North because he's in
Right,
the North.
right.
So if she's gonna, you're saying you can't see him. You see how ruthless he is. How's she gonna keep him from getting his way if she's in his kingdom?
So then how clearly the Boltons are responsible for what happened
To her
her
family.
brother.
Right.
So
And
Littlefinger
her
gives,
mother,
right,
and
her
her
mother,
nephew,
her brother,
and her sister-in-law.
Exactly. So there's an aspect that Littlefinger says to her about avenge them. So on some level, Littlefinger is encouraging her use this opportunity as a means to get
So
justice
basically she
and
could be
revenge.
right about to bed and then instead of bedding him, kill him. I mean that's the kind of move that would have to happen.
Right.
Keep your enemies close.
Gone
Yeah,
Girl.
I mean it would have to be like that. She'd have to marry him, do all that, and right before they have the act play out, she just totally
Mm-hmm.
No,
emasculates
Or find
him.
some other angle that we haven't been exposed yet.
Well, she can't be out of her. Before she's going to act out of character, there has to be a catalyst to make her act out of character. She hasn't shown the ability to politic.
Yeah, she has, because in last season, she lied to the people at the Eyrie to protect Littlefinger. So she starts playing the Game of Thrones last season.
Okay, that's a fair point, but she's not dealing. When she's dealing with Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of move is she going to have to do?
I don't know.
How does she politic her way out of that?
Yeah, it's probably something that we don't even know yet because that situation, she knew that it was a bleak situation when her and Littlefinger are standing at that and looking down, and I don't know what she's gonna do, but it does seem like from what Littlefinger told her, maybe foreshadowing something
She's going to use
of
that.
happening there, but she may do it within the system or she may do it in buck the system.
Well, let's put it like this. One thing that we've seen in Game of Thrones, one thing that is consistent, it's totally based on reversals. Almost every character, they start off going in one direction and they end up in opposite
Sure.
direction. I mean, even and I always forget his name, the guy that Ramsey broke. I mean, he
Reed.
started off
Oh,
as this
Theon.
as this
Theon.
sexual stud,
Yeah.
and and then look at him, Ned Stark is the one with the conscience and with the honor. He loses his head, and it goes on and on. Even with Daenerys, she was like this meek, getting manipulated, dominated by a man. She goes from being dominated by a man to like being able to command dragons.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Walk
yeah.
through fire. I mean everything, and I'm not going to name them all, but almost every character you can think of. That's in essence what you're dealing with. The two characters that are having the incestuous relationship.
Jamie and Cersei.
Yeah, Jamie is a great swordsman. He loses his hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's all
I
Yeah.
loves that.
it's all reversals. And then even in his relationship with the tall
Brienne.
Brienne.
with Brienne, first he's free, then he's captured, and then she rescues him. I mean, it was all these give and
Yeah.
take reversals.
So then if Sansa becomes like a Cersei character, that would be a heck of a reversal.
I think no matter what, look at where everybody is right now, and it's going to be opposite. Even Jon Snow. Although Jon Snow, I think, just had that reversal because now he's showing up as a major power
Mhm.
player.
Mhm.
It may not seem like that now,
Right.
but he made a powerful move with one act.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw a hint of Theon Greyjoy in Reek in tonight's episode too. There's a moment where he hit his face from Sansa as she
You
was
saw
walking
Sansa,
by.
yeah. Mhm.
And so, well, why? Why hide his face? If he
Yeah,
truly
yeah,
believes
yeah,
he's
yeah.
real,
Yeah.
Right.
Hold on. Let's say that.
Yeah.
And that's
So
hold on.
So with these like these hidden societies that they want you to kill people, do things. I mean, there's always some angle to it. So they get you. They supposedly get you high or drunk, and they show you these virgins, let you have one night with them, take you out of it, and all of a sudden, and they tell you, well, we'll let you go back to that, or you'll get to go back to that
That
if
was
you
a magical
kill all these,
dimension.
these folks for us.
Are
all
you
these
ready to
different-
begin?
Yeah, and so or,
All you gotta do is behead this man.
right, the Bruce Wayne thing,
Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul, behead this man. It's always, so she would probably be grateful that she didn't give up every aspect of Arya Stark. That she does preserve something of her previous life. Because to give herself wholly over to that, it wouldn't be shrewd.
Yeah, and we might lose our attraction to her as a character because we don't know these other ones that we've seen that I think we've only really seen one that is actually the main guy that she's been the man without a name or whatever, but we don't know what his life was like before or has he had any contact with his family? And Arya is the type of person, this revenge factor is so deep that I think she'll do the training to a certain degree, but if she has to lose every aspect, then she'll forget who's on her revenge list. That will be irrelevant at that point.
Right.
And she's not going to allow that to happen.
Right.
So she'll take it to a certain point, but she's going to get her revenge.
Or it could happen where she becomes this total opposite, but and that's a factor in the story for a while, and then something triggers her, and then she goes back to the revenge person.
Yeah.
Because you gotta have drama, so you gotta go
build
back
it.
and forth. Well, you
Right.
gotta go back and forth. Stories are just, it's Aristotle taking the story in a 180-degree direction. He talks about things shifting to the opposite.
Right.
And
that's what this show.
That's what this show's all about. But that's also an ancient tradition of epic poetry, of tragedy. You're having those reversals.
Right.
So it's mathematical. It's poetic. It's like a song. And a stanza of a song has a rhythm, and then it has a hook.
Right.
And then it has a rhythm, and stuff rhymes, so it has to interrelate, and so this is what's happening. Except we're looking at characters and how they make decisions, but there's a poetry with this, in terms of how it works, but it's a compelling but disturbing poetry in a certain way because you attach to these characters, and very often these characters that you attach to get killed in these brutal, unexpected ways, and it's disturbing, but it's so disturbing that that's also part of the visceralness of what makes the narrative so compelling.
Oh gosh, Oberyn. Oh goodness.
So what do maybe I know it's episode 3, so we've got about 7 episodes left.
No, that's it.
Is it too early to talk about who's on the chopping block?
No.
Characters?
No.
Who's the main
Well, they're moving slow in
person
this one.
we're potentially going to lose? And it usually happens around episode 8 or 9, right?
Who are you attached to the most? Let's start there. Whoever you're rooting for the most, start there.
Well, right now we're rooting for Jon Snow.
Yeah, but I've been rooting for Jon.
Well, I don't think Jon Snow's going to be on the chopping block in this, but he could. But I don't think so. But
There's a lot of characters.
that would be the ultimate surprise if he dies.
No, I think if he died, or that would be the ultimate Arya. I don't see either one of them on the chopping block. I'm not putting it past you, Game of Thrones. I know y'all can do stuff like that, but I just don't see them narratively. I don't see where that would be a huge payoff. I mean, it would get some, a lot of people on Twitter doing stuff, but
Twitter would break if Jon
Twitter
Snow
would break
died.
if Jon Snow died. Clearly, I don't know. Maybe Sam.
And there's people that already know anyway because of the books. So
Yeah, that's
Sa-
true.
Sam is a secondary character.
He is, but
Like the big deaths. I mean, what season 1 it was Ned Stark, right?
right.
Season 2 it was who?
I don't know. I think they made up for that in the Red Wedding. They-
Season 2.
Who died in season 2?
I'm trying to remember. I know that they had that big battle where the city was attacked,
Right.
right?
But nobody really.
Oh, Renly. Renly died.
Oh, Renly died. Okay.
Renly died.
Okay.
Season 3,
Red Wedding.
you had the Red Wedding and Robb Stark. Season 4, you had
Oberyn.
Tywin Lannister
And Oberyn.
and Oberyn.
Yeah.
Now we're at season
What-
5.
Right, but even Oberyn, he started as a B character and he kind of became more prevalent as the season went on, and then that's
So
why
really,
his
it's more
death-
Tywin's death. That was
Yeah,
as a
that was the big
character.
surprise. It was
Right.
more how Oberyn died that I think shocked everybody. But I mean, I think you could take any of the characters. I mean, an A or a B character like Sam, and if he were to build up, because I just don't see. I mean, Stannis, he's a pivotal piece to the kingship.
Could be Stannis. Stannis.
It could be. I could see that
Mm-hmm.
though. It's
So
not the
nobody
narrative.
would really
Ramsay
weep for
died,
Stannis,
too.
right?
Huh?
Nobody would really weep for Stannis, right? No one's really endeared to
No,
Stannis.
not necessarily, but
But he could die, and that would be
nobody
significant.
weeped for Tywin either. It was just wow.
People like Tywin, though. People don't want to admit it, but they like Tywin.
Yeah, he had
I
authority.
mean,
He has an
he has some
incredible
swag,
authority.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And I'll tell
Tywin
you
has
what.
some swag.
And when in that season, season 2 or season 3, when Arya was working for him,
That was cool.
that was cool.
Yeah,
I
that
was
was
like,
interesting. I watched that from
he's
time to
kinda
time,
cool.
yeah.
Okay, because he liked her,
Right.
or I guess she was impersonating a boy at that
Yeah,
time, so
right.
he liked her. I don't know. Who do you think, Greg?
You recognize
Who you
it.
got?
The first person to die on
Yeah.
the chopping block?
This
For this
I mean,
season.
it's hard for me to know because one of the things that George R.R. Martin works from is surprise. So you knee jerk, you want to say it's someone who you least expect, but it has to be characters that you care about
Mhm.
or are invested in and rooting for in some way. And I don't know. I've never been good at predicting things that are built on surprise because an author can always do something that the audience least expect. I call it the Scooby-Doo effect. I mean, Scooby-Doo, it's always some character like, was he even in the show? You know? And then,
He took off his mask.
And then he takes off, and you meddling kids. You know? The only thing you knew was it was going to be somebody that was said it was meddling kids, you know. But and then they all recognize him, Mr. Jacobs. And it's like,
It was like he carried a box from the back of the store into the front.
you know,
Hey.
he was in between frames during the credits, you know.
That's
But anyway, that aside, I really don't know. I think I don't have enough of a vantage point to know who exactly is going to be next. I know that there's going to be some unexpected stuff, but I also know that this season is working not so much for catharsis or shock value. Seems to really, like Brandon says, be making a theme
Mhm.
about vengeance.
Right.
And so it's not going for just that emotion.
Right.
And I still stick with it. I think Jon Snow has basically been introduced as he's here to stay.
Mhm.
You know, like he's coming with a principle, the fact that killing a king does not kill a king. Once you introduce that into the Game of Thrones, then you're dealing with a line that was said here.
Right.
There's only one God.
That was.
So if there's only one God and killing a king doesn't kill a king, then ultimately the principles of the one true king have to be what this show is going to ultimately be about. And the principles of the one true king is universal in all great narratives.
Mhm.
You know, it's King Arthur, it's King David, I mean, that's the timeless story.
Mhm.
Um,
What about you, Justin?
Ferris. Ferris is dead.
Varys,
Very
the
Varys.
bald guy.
Yeah.
That you're.
He's out.
You're still so sure of that.
I mean, you could be right.
Wow.
You could be right.
Now here's my prediction. He's Tyrion's. He's the only person who knows where Tyrion is.
Mhm.
And right
Well,
now,
now Jorah Mormont knows who
he
Tyrion
actually
is,
doesn't
right?
know what happened to Tyrion, or Tyrion's, unless he happened to see him being carried away.
That's what I was saying. Now Jorah Mormont knows that Tyrion's
Right.
there.
So I guess my thought is, Varys is going to be looking for him, could potentially find him, and what's his name? Jorah.
Jorah, the sunburned guy, who always looks like he's sunburned.
Yeah. Great fighter.
Loves Khaleesi.
Varys can't fight at all. So I could see there being some sort of, I don't know, verbal disagreement or battle between them, and
He gets taken out.
he gets taken out.
So okay. So what about Cersei? I don't know.
Yeah, it might be
Could
time.
be
I mean, it
Cersei.
could be.
Yeah,
Could
she's
be.
She's been hanging around for
She
a
has.
Because it is a battle
time.
between.
Her and Marjorie.
Exactly. That's really the.
Somebody's got to go.
And really, that's what this season seems to be about. It's all about the next generation. Now it's all about these, and that's some vengeance would be about that. Vengeance
Mhm.
is essentially how do you deal with the next generation. I mean, you did something with the first generation, but what do you do when their children show up? And you know these intergenerational conflicts, which is essentially what Game of Thrones is about.
Sure.
That's good stuff. Well, I think we've gone long enough. We could go for longer, but we appreciate you guys so much for tuning in and checking us out. We'll be bringing some new thoughts and discussions on episode 4 next week. And stay tuned, and over and out. Live long and prosper. So you think